Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today we are going to unpack a case that shattered the innocence of a small Arkansas town nearly 3 decades ago. The disappearance of Morgan Nix is one of those stories that really fundamentally shifted how communities view public safety. And then just recently, in 2024, it delivered a stunning, long-awaited answer, really thanks to science.
It really is a case that reminds us how quickly, ordinary life can just dissolve into a nightmare. We're exploring not just the tragedy of a missing child, but the decades-long investigation fueled by a mother's relentless advocacy, which, ultimately culminated in one of the most significant cold case DNA breakthroughs we've seen recently. It's quite something.
That's right. We have a complex stack of sources here covering the initial failure might be too strong a word, but the difficulties of the investigation.
The early stages, yeah.
The enduring impact of the search, and then this incredible scientific leap that happened almost 30 years later. So our mission today is to really walk through the evidence and the enduring yet, bittersweet legacy of 6-year-old Morgan Nix.
Yeah, and to really understand the trauma this case inflicted, you almost have to picture the scene. It's June 9th, 1995, Alma, Arkansas. It was, a warm summer evening. You can almost hear it, right? The sounds of American childhood. A Little League baseball game was going on. The lights of the field were glowing.
Yeah.
It was just a picture of safety, community.
That setting is so crucial, isn't it? Because it speaks to that fragility of trust in those everyday communal spaces. Morgan Nix, born in 88, so 6 years old.
Just 6?
She was there with her mother, Colleen Nix. The atmosphere was relaxed. Everyone focused on the game. That was getting late, wasn't it? Around 10:45 p.m.
Yeah, pretty late for a Little League game maybe, but, summer nights. And this is where that pivotal, just heartbreaking moment occurs. 6-year-old Morgan asked her mom for permission to join some friends near the field, specifically to catch fireflies.
Oh, wow.
Such a simple, innocent image, isn't it? Summer joy. Colleen Nix agreed, and Morgan ran off just to the edge of the field.
And the vanishing point, the moment it all changed, came almost instantly. Morgan's friends, they came back to the car ahead of her.
Yeah, apparently to shake sand out of their shoes. I mean, how relatable is that? Just a mundane little delay.
Totally.
And Morgan was last seen alone, standing near her mother's car, doing exactly that same thing, emptying sand out of her own shoes. Just a momentary distraction right at the edge of the crowd.
And in that tiny window.
Yeah. In the time it took for the friends to move away, and for Colleen Nix to realize Morgan wasn't immediately behind them, she was gone. That ordinary, brief moment of vulnerability near the car, at the very edge of everything happening, that became the focal point of the tragedy.
So let's unpack the immediate aftermath then. The initial investigation. Alma, Arkansas, you said. Tiny town at the time.
Very small. Fewer than 5,000 residents back then. So, an event like this, it sends immediate shockwaves, you can imagine. The abduction happened just before 11 p.m.
And the victim, Morgan Chantal Nix, only 6 years old. Now, the last clear sighting puts her near the car, but her friends, they saw something crucial, didn't they?
They did, and it's frankly chilling. They reported seeing a creepy man talking to Morgan just as she was putting her shoes back on.
So not like she was snatched silently. There was an interaction.
Exactly, an interaction right before she vanished, which is terrifying in itself.
And that witness account, that must have given investigators something to go on immediately, right? A description, a vehicle.
Yes, it did. Pretty quickly, they had descriptions for both the suspect and a vehicle. Considering the darkness, the chaos, they were actually quite specific.
Okay, what were those key details they were working with in those first frantic hours and days?
Well, the suspect was described as a white male, estimated age between 23 and 38, roughly 6 feet tall, medium to solid build, and notably, he had a mustache and a short beard.
Okay, so a distinct look, not just a generic description.
Right. It suggested an adult figure, maybe not necessarily a local teenager,
And crucially, this man was linked to a specific vehicle that witnesses saw. Watching the children.
Yeah, witnesses saw a man who seemed to be watching the kids, and he was connected to a particular truck that then disappeared around the same time Morgan did.
And the truck description.
A red pickup truck with a white camper shell. But here's where the details really matter, potentially. Witnesses described the condition. They noted the camper shell was possibly damaged, maybe slightly too short for the truck bed itself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and potential denting near the rear bumper. Those are, specific defects, things that should logically have helped narrow the search quite a bit.
So the reaction from law enforcement, the community, must have been massive. This small town.
Oh, absolutely massive. Befitting the shock. The investigation scale immediately became, overwhelming, trying to follow up every single possible lead.
And over the decades, how many leads are we talking about?
Get this. Over 10,000 leads were worked by local, state, and federal agencies. 10,000. If you just stop and think about the sheer human hours needed to vet 10,000 separate pieces of information, often coming from emotional people, maybe unreliable sources, it tells you the tenacity involved.
Yeah.
And just how many potential paths were explored and, ultimately exhausted.
And despite that monumental effort, and this is something we see so often in these high-profile cold cases, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The long-term physical searches, they consistently came up empty.
Completely empty. They were, like you said, chasing shadows, sometimes across state lines for years.
And specific examples of those searches.
Oh, yeah. It really shows the desperation, I think. For instance, back in 2002, police did a significant dig on some private land in Boonville, Arkansas, based on a tip. Proved false. Then, years later, 2010, and again in 2017, federal investigators followed leads that took them over the border to Spiro, Oklahoma. They searched a vacant house, even a well on a property there, multiple times, apparently.
Searching a well multiple times, years apart.
Yeah.
That just shows how deeply committed they were to finding something. Physical evidence.
Anything. But the outcome was always the same. No remains, no clothing, no concrete proof of Morgan's location. The case just remained agonizingly open.
And that lack of physical evidence, combined with those, very specific initial witness descriptions, it kind of sets the stage for the case's most tragic irony, doesn't it? The early miss.
Exactly, the early miss. This is where it gets incredibly frustrating looking back.
Because long before the DNA breakthrough we'll get to, the prime suspect, the man ultimately identified, Billy Jack Links. He was actually on their radar almost immediately.
He was. It's quite shocking, really. Links was arrested only 2 months after Morgan's abduction, so August 1995.
Okay.
And it was for attempting to abduct another child, an 11-year-old girl in nearby Van Buren.
Wow. So right away, a pattern of behavior in the immediate area.
A clear pattern of opportunistic predatory behavior targeting children right there in the vicinity.
And the circumstantial evidence linking him to Morgan's case back then, it was strong, wasn't it? Even without DNA.
Strikingly strong. First, Links drove a red pickup truck. It matched the general description given by the witnesses at the Little League field.
The truck with the camper shell.
The details aren't fully clear if his had the exact camper shell described, but it was a red pickup. He was local enough to be in the area. And crucially, he was clearly acting as a sexual predator targeting kids at that exact time.
So if the links were that strong, even circumstantially back in 95, why wasn't he pursued harder? Why did this guy essentially fall off the radar for Morgan's case? This feels like the critical point where it went cold right in front of them.
It really speaks volumes, I think, about the limitations of policing, technology, and maybe even methodology back in the mid-90s. Links was questioned about Morgan's disappearance.
Okay, so they did talk to him.
They did. But the sources confirm he denied any involvement. And investigators at the time felt, and this is just a heartbreaking detail, they felt he appeared to be truthful.
Appeared truthful.
Yeah. So based on that assessment, they moved on.
Wow. A gut feeling basically overriding pretty strong circumstantial evidence. They didn't have the tools, obviously, the DNA tools we have now.
All right.
But they dismissed the behavioral pattern, the vehicle match, just based on an interrogation.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the tragedy of pre-DNA cold case work right there.
It really is. And Links, he had a known history of sexual offenses even before this. He was later convicted for that attempted abduction in Van Buren's sexual solicitation of a child, I think the charge was, in 1996.
Oh, he did serve time.
He did serve time, but he died in prison back in 2000 at age 72. So the realization, the certainty that he was the man, it came, 24 years after his death?
Incredible. And that lack of resolution for all those years, it meant the case became defined by, what we can call the second phase.
Yeah.
Intense speculation, online sleuthing, and also a massive cultural impact. Because when the police don't have answers,
The public steps in, yeah. And increasingly, online communities try to fill that void.
So what were the main theories floating around for years?
Well, the initial primary theory, which held for a long time, was what you might call the local kidnapping theory. The idea that the abductor wasn't necessarily some, random transient passing through without connection, but maybe someone familiar with the ballpark, the local routes. Perhaps a transient worker or a truck driver who knew the area because they were passing through saw an opportunity. The key feeling was that the act seemed impulsive, maybe not heavily planned.
Right. And then as the internet matured, especially the true crime communities in the 2000s, online sleuths really dug in, didn't they? Trying to connect dots, find wider patterns.
Oh, absolutely. They spent years doing that, looking for links to other disappearances, other cases. Investigators themselves had to explore potential links to known serial offenders active in Arkansas, Oklahoma, that whole region in the mid-90s.
Were there specific offenders they looked at?
Yeah, standard procedure required vetting any potential connection. People wondered about links to, say, the perpetrators of the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders or other regional abductions. But our sources are clear. No definitive link to a known serial offender was ever established for Morgan's case.
And the online communities, while maybe well-intentioned, they can also complicate things, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on tiny details, maybe sending investigators down rabbit holes.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. You see it all the time. Online forums, Reddit threads, they'd re-examine inconsistencies. Things like the early police sketches or the exact description of the truck and camper shell.
Right. Leading to theories about multiple suspects or misidentification.
Exactly. But beyond that, law enforcement also had to deal with the really detrimental effects of active misinformation.
Like false confessions. That must have been a nightmare.
A complete nightmare. False confessions over the years significantly sidetracked leads, consumed just huge amounts of valuable time and resources.
Yep.
And that's not even counting the hundreds, literally hundreds of alleged sightings that had to be vetted. People thought they saw Morgan everywhere. There was one reported in Missouri in the early 2000s, for example. None were ever confirmed.
It shows the awareness, though. People were looking. But yeah, trying to find that needle in the haystack.
Monumental task. But, out of all that frustration, that tragedy, came something unintended but really profound, a legacy. Morgan's case immediately galvanized her community, and it was led by her mother, Colleen Nick, her impact. It just cannot be overstated.
What did she do right away?
Her action was immediate and systemic. She founded the Morgan Nick Foundation in 1996, just the year after Morgan disappeared. And this organization, it wasn't just about, emotional support groups. It was built to educate children on safety, to try and prevent abductions, and crucially, to provide practical support to other families going through that same agony of having a missing loved one.
That grassroots effort, it actually led to major changes, didn't it? Legislative transformation, particularly in the South.
It really did. Morgan's case became this emotional touchstone for missing child awareness. You have to remember, before cases like this gained such high profile, coordination between different law enforcement agencies, different regions, it wasn't standardized. It could be slow, patchy.
And that's where the Amber Alert system comes into play.
Exactly. Morgan's case directly influenced the rollout of the Amber Alert system. It prompted the state of Arkansas to name its specific service the Morgan Nick Amber Alert.
That's huge.
It is huge. We really need to pause and appreciate the significance of that. This system, built directly in the shadow of this devastating loss, has since saved countless lives. By getting critical information out to the public quickly, effectively, in a standardized way.
It's just incredibly powerful, isn't it? One family's unimaginable pain, forcing systemic change, transforming how law enforcement works, how communities coordinate in an emergency. It ensures that hopefully no future child disappearance in Arkansas will face that same slow, uncoordinated start that Morgan's case possibly did.
It's perhaps the most meaningful piece of her legacy, ensuring Morgan's memory is tied directly, forever, to the protection of other children.
Okay, let's pivot now to part 3. The moment when nearly 3 decades of agony of speculation finally met modern forensic science. We need to talk about how this systematic re-examination of the cold case files, how that finally overcame that tragic early miss from 1995.
Right, so the Alma police, they were methodically reviewing those cold case files, circling back, looking at every dead end with fresh eyes, maybe new perspectives. Around 2019, 2020, they focused again on Billy Jack Links.
The deceased suspect, The one dismissed based on that investigator's gut feeling.
Exactly. The one who appeared truthful. They decided to take another look.
But how? I mean, how do you find physical evidence connected to a man who died 20 years earlier, especially evidence like a vehicle? It's likely changed hands multiple times, been cleaned, repaired.
It was an extraordinary effort, truly. The absolutely crucial step was tracking down his 1986 red Chevrolet pickup truck.
They found the actual truck.
They found the truck. It had been sold. It was with a new owner. Imagine finding a, 35-year-old vehicle and then convincing the current owner to let the FBI essentially take it apart.
Yeah, that's asking a lot.
But they did it. The sources highlight they then called in the FBI's evidence response team. These are the specialists. They forensically processed that entire vehicle piece by painstaking piece, looking for anything.
So this is where the old investigation finally bridges to the new technology.
Yeah.
The ability to retain evidence, revisit it, even tiny traces, becomes paramount. They were looking for something 1990s forensics just couldn't have found or identified.
Precisely. They collected evidence, including, crucially, hair samples from inside that truck. And this material was sent to Othram Labs.
Othram. They specialize in this advanced genetic testing, right?
Exactly. This isn't your standard forensic DNA test from back then. This is advanced genetic genealogy, specialized sequencing. It's capable of working with incredibly degraded or minute samples that previously would have been useless.
And the results. They came back in October 2024. And they were. Well, staggering is the right word here, I think.
They were definitive, absolutely definitive. A hair sample recovered from Lynx's truck was determined to be a first-degree familial match to Morgan's mother, Colleen Nick.
Okay, let's pause there, because that specific term, first-degree familial match, that's the key, isn't it? It sounds technical, but that's the smoking gun. What does that mean exactly for listeners?
Right, it's a crucial distinction. A first-degree familial match means the DNA belongs to an immediate relative, a parent, a child, or a full sibling. It signifies extremely close kinship. So they didn't necessarily find Morgan's own DNA in perfect condition. Maybe it was too degraded. But they found DNA that genetically matched her immediate family's unique markers so closely it had to be from a parent, child, or sibling.
And the logical deduction from that point is just ironclad, basically. Since Colleen Nick and her family confirmed they didn't know Billy Jack Lynx, they had never been inside his truck.
Right.
That meant the DNA had to belong to the only first-degree relative who could have been in that truck. Morgan.
It's deductive reasoning, yeah, but supported by irrefutable science. The evidence strongly indicated, almost certainly proved, that Morgan had been inside his truck. It just closed that loop. The loop the 1995 investigators had tragically left open, the vehicle, the timeline, the attempted abduction of another child, it all suddenly clicked into place with genetic certainty.
So on October 1st, 2024, the Alma Police Department made it official. They named Billy Jack Lynx as the suspect in Morgan Nick's abduction. After 29 agonizing years, the question of who was responsible was finally answered.
Yeah. Which moves us into, I guess, part 4. The analysis, the takeaway, the nature of this resolution. As you said earlier, it's bittersweet. The case is now classified as solved, but that resolution, it didn't bring closure in the traditional sense.
Right. We're left in this really difficult situation where, justice has theoretically been served, the perpetrator's identified, he's dead, but the victim's still missing. That DNA breakthrough confirmed the who and likely the what happened, her fate, but it didn't and still hasn't led to recovering her remains.
And that is the ongoing critical mission now for the authorities. DNA is incredible. It can identify an abductor from decades ago from a single hair, but it can't tell them where he hid the evidence of his crime. So now they're intensely focused on answering the questions science can't solve. How exactly was she taken from that field? What happened immediately after? And the most critical question for the family, where are Morgan's remains now?
They must be just diligently working, trying to piece together every single aspect of Lynx's life, right? His background, his family, his friends, acquaintances, hoping someone somewhere maybe remembers something, pulls a piece of information about his movements back in June 95, or maybe something he said or did before his death in 2000.
It has to be the focus. And it brings us right back to Colleen Nick. Her extraordinary endurance, it's been the driving force all along, hasn't it? She maintained her advocacy, kept Morgan's story alive, ran the foundation, all for nearly 3 decades, ensuring that the evidence, the case file, it never truly gathered dust. It never truly went cold in people's minds.
The strength required
Yeah.
to maintain that public position, that hope, knowing your daughter's case was unresolved for so long. It's just immense. And her stated desire now to find Morgan's remains for a proper burial. That's the necessary final act of love, isn't it? The closure she still seeks. The case might be solved, but the investigation feels very active until Morgan is found.
Absolutely. It's not over for her or for them. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this case, it just embodies that profound tragedy of lost innocence in a public setting. Why does this particular case continue to haunt people, online communities, local communities? I think it's because it happened in a space that we all understand universally as safe. A little league field on a warm summer night, catching fireflies.
Yeah, it just shatters that fundamental trust, doesn't it? In those everyday spaces. It makes every parent pause and consider the unthinkable, even during the most normal childhood activities.
And technically, I mean, this case is just such a powerful testament to the advancements in forensic science and also the critical necessity of retaining old physical evidence, even when it seems useless at the time.
Right.
It draws such a compelling parallel with other missing child cases, other cold cases, where the abductor remained unknown for decades. The development of this advanced genetic testing, the kind Othram uses to reconstruct tiny or degraded DNA, it's fundamentally changing how cold cases are worked.
That power means that the failures of the past, like maybe that gut feeling that let Lynx walk free in 95, they can now potentially be rectified. Evidence retained, even something as small as a single hair in a dusty old truck years, decades later. It becomes the key to answers, if not always full justice.
Yeah, it really reinforces the need for cold case units everywhere to prioritize storing and reanalyzing every potential piece of evidence, just knowing that technology will likely keep advancing. It might eventually meet the challenge of even the smallest, oldest sample. The knowledge gained from this incredibly long search, it keeps Morgan Nick's memory active, doesn't it, in the effort to protect other children, ensuring that the system her mother fought so hard for, the Morgan Nick Amber Alert, continues to save lives.
It's truly a legacy built on incredible strength, fierce advocacy, that ultimately brought a very difficult truth to light. Thank you for walking us through all the complexities, the science, and the heartbreak of this case.
Thank you. It's an important story to tell.
Next time on Threads of Truth, we explore the mysterious case of Bryce Lespisa, the college student who vanished after his car was found crashed and abandoned in California. Was it an accident, a breakdown, or something much stranger?